Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard Lianorn deck profile for October 2022. This is the first of the 3 trial decks that we got for Cardfight Vanguard Overdress. Being the deck used by Urara in the anime, it focuses on being able to boost your Vanguard with multiple units on the field, hitting for some pretty big power, even gaining an additional drive check. I figured I'd do an update for this deck now and then just update it again when we get the new support from set 6, so people know what to at least use or what they can use for the deck until we get the additional support along with what we have already and the new cards we got for this deck from the trial deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the ride deck, our starter is Announcing Wind of Spring, Corfi. Just the standard starter when wrote upon. If you went second, draw a card. Our grade 1 is Budding of Pleasant Sounds, Gracia. When wrote upon by Brilliant Tune, Rectina, it lets you call this card to rearguard, giving you an additional grade 1 booster on the field. And also on rearguard during the battle boosted to Vanguard, it gets plus 5,000 power, giving you an additional boost. Is just very useful, being able to set up the additional power that your Vanguard will get in many other ways in the deck as well. Our grade 2 is Brilliant Tune, Rectina. When this card is wrote upon by a unit with Leonorn in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1, choose a grade 1 or less from your drop zone, and call it to rear. So this gives you another booster in the form of one of your other cards that you've potentially soul charged or soul blasted, and then also being able to have that unit called back and set up your entire back row quite easily for all your cards. And our go-to grade 3 in the deck is Bandmaster of Blossoming Bonds, Leonorn. As the main go-to one we have from the trial deck, it's what we'll use until we get the newer version in set 6. But along with the copy we are running in the ride deck, we are running 3 additional copies. When wrote upon, it could also be regarded as Grand March of Full Bloom, Leonorn, which is the new unit we'll be getting in set 2. And on the Vanguard Circle, when this unit attacks, Soul Blast 1, discard a card from your hand, and boost this unit with all of your back row units with boost. If you boost this unit with 3 or more units, it gets drive plus 1 until end of battle. And at the end of that battle, choose 2 of your back row rear guards and stand them. So this allows you to at least be able to, restand those units and have them be boosted or be able to boost the rear guards that haven't attacked yet. And the drive plus 1 just adds for the additional pressure that you can use against your opponents. And for the other grade 3s that we run the deck, 4 copies of Clapping Dragon when placed on a front row rearguard from hand. If your back row has 3 or more units, counter plus 1, draw a card. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets plus 10,000 to end of turn. So the main thing you'll use with Leonorn is the Soul Blast. So being able to at least use your counter blast for something effective like drawing with Clapping Dragon makes it a definite 4 of in the deck, so you have that additional plus power you can get. If you Persona Ride, it's 33,000 on its own, and then you'll just have the additional unit that can boost this card, hitting for some pretty big numbers alone, having your Vanguard attack with its own pressure, and then your added back row rear guards, adding that to your grade 3s. For the grade 2s, we really don't run too many grade 2s in the deck, but for what we do run, I run 4 copies of Creed Assault. If your rearguard did not stand by a card effect this turn, this unit cannot attack, and on the rearguard, during the battle this unit attacked to Vanguard, it gets plus 10,000 power. So the rearguards that will restand by a card effect is, because of Leonorn being able to restand 2 of your back row units after they boost her. Very useful because then you'll activate the power of Creed Assault, which will then also get plus 10,000 when it attacks into your opponent, meaning you have that setup to have a unit along with the Persona Ride. Once again, some pretty big numbers, just like with Clapping Dragon. The Creed Assault will have to resolve the Leonorn card effects for it to attack, of course, so if you don't have the soul to use it, you'll just want to end up intercepting with Creed Assault afterwards. And then for the last of the grade 2s, just 2 copies of Blooming Petal, Carophilus. When placed on rear, if your soul has no cards, soul charge 2. So Leonorn's Soul Blast is definitely needed for its play to resolve. So you just need soul buildup if you don't have other cards to rely on to do so. So Carophilus is just a soul charge 2. When placed on rear, just 2 copies though, so you at least have those numbers. Once you use up all the soul for Leonorn with its continuous, when it attacks, having that soul charge needed will definitely help for the Soul Blast you'll use when this card attacks. The grade ones do take up a big number of cards that we run in the deck. One of the more important ones is Lively Rhythm Biara. When this new attack hits that it boosted a Vanguard, put a grade 2 or less card from your hand to your soul and draw a card. So the boost for the Vanguard definitely comes in handy for the fact that this card doesn't even have to be behind your Vanguard to gain the put into soul and then draw a card skill, because it just can apply when it boosts as one of the added backup grade ones in the back row for your Vanguard's boost. Being able to then have that put into soul also builds up Leonorn's own soul and then giving you an additional draw as well. For the additional grade ones, I also run 4 copies of Stepping Calyx Salvia. When this unit is placed on rear, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you may call a plant token to rearguard. So the plant token to rearguard is just great because you have another boost. If you wanted to call Salvia to the front row, if you Persona row, this is an 18k booster on its own. And then having that token in the back row rearguard to provide the additional boost to your Vanguard. It won't be as strong as some of the other units, but it'll at least be a guaranteed back row that you'll need for your Lianorn to at least get the drive +1, since you have to boost with 3 units. And I also run 3 copies of Knight of Pure Theodore. When discarded from hand during your ride phase, you may call this card to rearguard. So just as a good early game discard cost for the ride deck. Otherwise, just discarding it gives you a grade 1 in the back row, along with what your ride deck can set up for the additional units. This card just helps as an additional one to call to the back row after discarding it, making it so your cost doesn't make you minus at all for your setup on the field, and being able to retain other cards in your hand to guard with, since you use this one for the discard cost. And then for the Sentinels, I'm running 3 copies of Plan or Prevent Dragon and 1 copy of the new Elementaria Sanctitude. This one just helps for the cost when your opponent's Vanguard attacks with triple drive. This ability can be played without paying its cost. With it, you play this card with a discard from a hand. If your Vanguard is grade 3 or less, choose one of your units. It cannot be hit until the end of that battle, and then remove this card. So, protection. Blitz orders activate just like, Sentinels would when you're being attacked, and you only have 1 in your deck. That's why we're only running 1, along with 3 Sentinels, since it is regarded as a Sentinel to begin with. And then you just have the Plan or Prevent Dragons as the additional Sentinel to guard against your opponent, being able to have no discard cost if you only have 1 or less cards in your hand. And for the orders, I run 2 copies of Fun Marching, just an additional way to give boosted power to your grade 1 rearguards. You play it with a Soul Blast of 1. All your grade 1 or less rearguards get plus 5,000 to end of turn. This includes the ones in the front row, but being able to give the back row ones 5,000 means that if they all boost Leonorn, that's an additional 15,000 power in total. So just immense pressure that you can provide for just your Vanguard alone with this one order. And moving on now to the triggers. For our criticals, I'm running 8 criticals total. 4 copies of the new Melodia Pomerum. I would say just the most fitting critical trigger, since it is a, animal that is playing an instrument for the Leonorn ban. And 4 of the Aspiring Maiden, Elena, for the put into soul plus 2,000. The power is good, but also just being able to provide soul for Leonorn can be the 1 card needed if you have no other soul and no other ways to soul charge. Being able to boost and then just set up this card afterwards. And I also run 3 copies of the front trigger. If you wanted to run the front with the additional plus 5k shield, you can run that instead. This is just more readily available in the trial deck if you're looking to test out what triggers to run. And 4 copies of Flowery Tone for the heal. Once again, same premise, but if you wanted to run any of the card ability heals, you could just take out 2 copies of this heal for that. With the last trigger being the over trigger, which is Bless Favor, the additional plus power, healing, and critical, all adds up to some pretty big numbers for Leonorn and then your other rearguards to hit against your opponent with. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. Once again, it's a pretty awesome deck, but all 3 of them do show big promise with the new support we got. So definitely look to see which one fits your playstyle the most. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.